If you're one of the many football lovers yearning for a return to the game style of the 1970s and 80s, Paul Vander Haar will be one of your all-time favourites. The Essendon star played his football like it was played in boys' dreams. One-on-one contests, spectacular marks, huge torps and bags of goals. Welcome, Paul. Different game, isn't it?
Thanks for the introduction, Mike. That's a good start.
Well, that's you, yeah.
Yeah.
Different game.
Yeah, well, you just watch it on telly now and occasionally go to a game. It's a different style. It's more holding possession. If my last game in the 1990 Grand Final, which I turned up for, I played, but I basically turned up for, that was the one thing that I realised with that game, that they just kept possession with it all the time. And now it seems to be the standard type of a game where I'd be going, just kick it long and we'll go for a big mark. But it's a bit different now.
Talking about the kick it long and go for a big mark, one of the epic encounters in football history actually was Knights Vander Haar at Windy Hill about 35 years ago. Do you remember it?
Yeah, it was. I was a Hawthorn supporter then, and Knightsy was a bit of me legend there, so I was pretty excited about getting up and having a game against him. 16
marks between you. In fact, you reckon there was more than that, don't you?
Oh, we all exaggerate probably. No, I don't remember the stats on it, but I have seen replays of it, and yeah, it was probably one of our great games there.
It was, and I think the younger people find it difficult to understand that you two were allowed to play one-on-one against each other.
Yeah, it wasn't a defensive sort of style of game back then. It was more kick it long and hope for a mark and move it on.
There were no rules for you from Sheedy, were there? Your view was if the ball was in the air and you could get to it, you were going for it, right?
Yep. That was one thing I'd probably mucked up my career by going for too many marks and not taking any notice of what was in between. But, you know, I suffered a lot of injuries from that too.
Well, actually, you weren't the only one to suffer the injuries. Sheeds reminded me of a marking contest in one game where you came from nowhere, crashed into a pack that elbowed Merritt in the back of the head. You kicked Terry Danaher on the way down and you landed on Tim Watson. You took out the three planks of the great Essendon teams of the 80s.
Well, they were getting in my way.
It was a different... Your brand of football was almost unique, wasn't it? I think you were the kid who were reluctant to go to Essendon. You finally got there and you almost did it on your terms.
Yeah, I had a pretty easy run. I wasn't really big on pre-season training, and I got asked to go down, must have been 75. Now, I went down for a training run for 3 years prior to starting, and I just thought, no, this is all going to be too hard. Wasn't really keen on being known or being involved with all that. But it was when Bill Stephen came out one Thursday night and said, look, we'd like you to come out and give it a go. They tell me you can play footy. Why don't you just come out and give it a go? You'd hate to be, you know, around 20, 35 years later saying that you could have played league footy, so just prove it to yourself. Come out and see if you can do it. And I thought that was the right wording that I needed to hear. And, yeah, so I went down and trained on a Thursday night, so it must have been Tuesday night he came out. So trained on a Thursday night and had a game in the reserves, and that was in round 4. And went to training on the Tuesday night because I told them I can't train Mondays because I play basketball.
Which was a fib.
And went down and trained again, and anyhow, going home on Thursday night, I thought, oh, well, I'll call into the local Ringwood Coach and Horses Hotel and have a counter meal. And anyhow, a guy came in about 20 minutes later and says, just come over the radio that you're in the seniors. So, how easy is this?
Was there any refreshment with the counter meal?
I always would have a few beers with the meal, yeah.
How many's a few, Paul?
2 or 3 over a meal.
Loose 2 or 3.
That's over dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a few stories get around that sort of go out. Look, occasionally I might have gone a little bit too far, but you only got the stories on when you played a bad game that they'd hear you'd been on the drink, but that was normally where I only had 2 or 3. No, well, it was for a long time that try to do the same sort of things, and a guy that was working with my dad at the time, and he said to me, because I didn't really get too good at games in the first 3 games, and he said to me, why don't you just do your normal thing, we'll go down the pub and have a counter meal and have a few beers. So I did that and that worked, and that's probably where I continued on a bit.
So are you talking about beers on a Friday night before a game? You are, aren't you?
I'm trying to subdue it a bit.
No, true story, mate.
Yeah, on Friday night I found that I'd have a few beers and a meal. Sometimes after dinner you might go out and you might have a few more, and I know there was a few of the times that it might have got a little bit over the top, but my attitude always was I've done the wrong thing, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to do the right thing on the field. And then there's the times where I tried to change my lifestyle. One night Sheeds rang up, I was having dinner at Mum and Dad's place, and Mum said, telephone call for you. So that's unusual. And Sheeds said, I was just trying to see what you do on a Friday night. So I'm here at my Mum and Dad's having dinner, having a quiet one. And anyhow, so the next day on the Saturday, I played a pathetic game, so I thought I'm not going to Mum and Dad's for dinner again. I'm going back to the counter meals.
Back to the old routine. Was Sheedy wasn't he was anti-smoking, strongly anti-smoking, and he wasn't the alcohol. He was low on that then. Did he lean on you about your lifestyle?
I think as long as you performed and done the right thing, he knew that people were doing the wrong things, and it wasn't just me, but a lot of guys had different ways of preparing for a game, and I tried a few different alternatives, and some didn't work. But I found that to sit down, just have a few beers with your mates, or go out, be occupied, but to sit at home watching telly or sitting around doing nothing didn't really help my ability, I think.
Did you, for argument's sake, did you smoke on the way to the footy when you were playing?
Well, I'd lost my licence in '82, and Daisy Williams would pick me up, and we'd have our couple of smokes on the way to the footy. Yeah.
It's sort of, the younger people would find this inconceivable, wouldn't they? That blokes would be smoking. And did you smoke at half time?
No, I didn't do that. But I know it's a bad thing, but the other thing is half the Essendon 84 and 85 grand final side, they were smokers.
Were they really?
Leon Baker, Simon Madden, Roger Merritt, Glenn Hawker, Daisy Williams.
Literally,
and when I'm saying buying smokes, but I don't want to say that to encourage, because I'm highly against it.
Van, it's a great career. I mean, everyone loved watching you play. You were a hero at Essendon, and the people who weren't Essendon supporters just admired the way you played your footy. 17 finals, 4 grand finals, 2 flags. Big career.
When you look back on it, going back to that statement of, just go and prove yourself, and I look back at it now, I do appreciate it now, whereas years ago I didn't want to be known. I didn't, just wanted to be Joe Blogg down the road. And
were you shy or not?
I'd say internally I'm shy, but I've opened up a fair bit nowadays.
Is it true?
It took you 3 years to get me here.
It did, exactly. Probably 5, I reckon. Fact or fiction that you used to bandage your right hand up so that you didn't have to sign autographs?
No, true story. After a game, just every time after a game, you want to do the right thing for the kids and sign autographs and so forth and shake hands. But I did it a couple of times, just wrapped my hand up in a bandage to pretend I had a broken hand, so I couldn't do it, and say, sorry, I just can't do it. So. What
about your grand final record, mate? I know you're yourself, you think that you were a modest performer in those games?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're your 2 major games that you want to play your best footy, was in the grand finals, but unfortunately 84 and 85 I didn't really get too well on the record books there.
Have you got a theory for that?
Well, in 84 I had really bad OP, and I didn't play the last 3 games, went to hospital and had all the injections in the pubic bone, and didn't play the last 3 home and away games, and then I was right for the finals, and then I had the same thing in 85 where I ended up with same problem but in the groins, and they pumped you up with cortisone and injections, and that worked. I haven't had a problem with them since.
Should you have played? Were you fit to play?
I believe so, yeah, but I got to the point where I couldn't even lift my leg to have a kick, but I had to go in, and after doing it at 84, I just said automatically, you've just got to go and do it again. I was okay, but it takes it out of you where you can't play for the last 3 games leading into the finals. But then again, there's a lot of my good years I put down to saying I couldn't get any pre-season training in, so I put that down that I don't need to train.
Kevin Sheedy told me, Paul, that you front of him one night when it was the young Sheeds as a coach, and he used to work you pretty hard on the track, and you said to him, do you know what it's like knowing that I, Paul, have to front you, Kevin, at training after having spent 8 hours of the day building swimming pools?
Yeah, well, that was hard because money was holiday money, pocket money in those days, and I had to work, and that was my desire, that I wanted to work. I did try at times to relax, sit down and sit around all day, but I just felt lethargic from doing that. So I tried, there's another thing I tried, to take it easy, but that didn't work. So, I feel it's better to be occupied and working, and some days, we'd be digging a hole out all day and then going to training, and I'd have to explain to Sheeds that, I'm a little bit worn out. So.
Did you resent Sheeds in the early years?
No, I reckon he was fantastic. Yeah, I resent him in the way that he made you train hard, yes, but fantastic, just motivation and realising that to get yourself fit, now I know what fitness is about, that you needed that, and no, fantastic. He just made us all aware that we got the opportunity, we're a good side, but we just got to get the best out of each other.
No, one of the premiership years, I'm not sure of the year, you'll be able to tell me this, you would have had a few after the game, enjoyed the celebrations. You've gone back to Windy Hill, had a few more, and then you've gone, you know what's coming here, don't you? Then you've gone walkabout.
Yeah.
Where did you put your head down that night?
I went round to see a friend and have a few celebration drinks with them, but I ended up knocking on the wrong door, and a young kid came out and said, "Hey, Mum, Paul Vander Haar's out the front here," and I thought, "Oh, sorry, I'm at the wrong address," and they said, "Oh no, come in." Said, have a beer. I said, oh, okay. So I sat down and said, I suppose you're hungry? I said, oh, yeah. So I was just sitting on the couch having a chat with them. I fell asleep, and Kevin Morris from the club, the lady rang up the footy club and said, look, we've got Vander around here and he's fallen asleep on our couch, so we can't wake him up. So Kevin Morris came round, woke me up, and went back to the club and kept celebrating.
Amazing story, isn't it? Vander, you played 14 years with the red and the black, but it was nearly all over after one, wasn't it? Take us back to the summer of between 1977-78. You've had a trail bike accident and the career looked like it could have been over.
Yeah, it was between Christmas and New Year after my first year, and I was up motorbike riding up Bonnie Doon Way, and I remember riding, but I don't remember much after that. I was unconscious for a week or so, and ended up waking up. When I came to, I was looking at the roof and thought, where am I here? And looked a bit to the left, and I seen a guy bolted to the wall there, and looked a bit to the right, and a guy bolted to the wall, and I thought, well, it must be in the same situation here. And so I had to spend a few months in hospital, and they wouldn't let me out till I had all my movement back in my legs and my arms.
Wow, so you literally a few months in hospital. Was it a broken neck, or was it a spinal?
Well, they classify it as a broken neck, but it was more that the fractures were pretty close, that they'd hit my nerves, and had to get the nerves back. But I've been lucky to get away with it. It's been conscientious on me, but occasionally I still get a sore neck. When I talk about it, I still get the tingling back in my arms again. Yeah. So, I was pretty lucky. Amazing thing, though, I think you played round 5 or 6 that next year in 78, correct? Yeah, after round 5, yeah. That's a massively quick recovery, isn't it? Well, the doctors got a bit cheesed off because they hadn't given me the all clear to go and play, and Essendon had snuck it through the back lines that they didn't name it that I was going to play, so I had to keep it all quiet. But while I was in hospital, I also had a blood clot on my lung and was on warfarin, so that was where they got a bit cheesed off, because I would have bruised and whatever. Easy. So you weren't named in the team when you made your comeback? No. You just ran out on the Saturday? Yeah. Wow. Didn't like all that fuss. I remember that there was a photo of you in the hospital bed, and you looked to the layman as if you could have been quadriplegic. Well, I was pretty close. But then, I was 19, so I was still pretty casual and knocking around and not too serious about things, and still coming out of concussion that probably didn't really know what was really had happened. You love those two-wheel vehicles, didn't you? Yeah, well, I've given that away now. Well, I know when you started, when the Bombers finally lured you to Windy Hill, one of the incentives was a motorbike, wasn't it? Yeah, well, as I said before, that the game was you get $100 a game, and Ringwood Footy Club, who I played for, said, "Oh, we'll match that. We'll give you $100 a game as well." Yeah. So I went back to Essendon and said, look, throw in a motorbike and I'll come across there.
I know that the period 86 to 88 was bad because of injuries and you only played, I think, 15 games in 3 years. But did it ever get close to the point where they were going to let you go?
I said, look, I know I've had a couple of bad years. I rang Kevin Egan up and said, look, there's something on the wall here, isn't there? There's something going on. And he said, yeah, the club want to get rid of you. And I said, well, I got a 3-year contract, and Mitty said it didn't matter. They just said they've had enough. So,
wow.
So I spoke to Roger Hampson at the time, and said,
Roger was the CEO.
Oh, I presume he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thought he was the bouncer.
Yeah.
And said to him that, look, what's going on? Roger just said, look, we don't want you. And I said, well, how? I'm going to change my attitude. I know I've had a couple of bad years. I've done the wrong things. What do I do to get another chance? And he said, well, and I said, because I've still got a year of my contract. And he said, well, we'll just pay you out the contract and you can go. So he said, otherwise, you can give us the contract back and pay the money back and we'll let you play on match payments. He thought I would have walked on that. And so I came back and wrote out a cheque for 45 grand and said, Roger, I'd like to play next year.
Wow. So you were contracted to play that final year of the contract on 45 grand,
yeah.
Right? Did they pay you in advance? I
had a 3-year contract, lowered the total on it,
yep,
and got a 3-year advance and done an investment with that.
Okay.
So then I had to, so then I gave them the...
Wow, so you paid 45 grand of your own money back to Essendon to void the contract and then still play on match payments.
That's right, yeah.
Wow. Weren't you insulted, though, that they were prepared to give you away?
Well, I'd probably done the wrong thing too. I had my bad years, so I could understand it. And I thought, I'm pretty casual about everything, but when it gets to work or footy, I probably got a little bit more serious about it and said, OK, I'm prepared to do that.
Did your attitude change?
It did, because I thought, well, you put all these years into it, you look back and you think, you've been able to do this, you've been able to do that. Probably goes back to go down and give it a go, and I did. And it was probably there to say, I'm probably just a little bit too young to give it up yet. It's not that I love the game, but I just done it to say, well, I've got another year or two in me. So
Did you love the game?
It's probably more the comradeship.
Yeah. But looking at you play football, you looked like you loved playing the game. You didn't like all the other stuff that went with it. But when the match was on...
Yeah, I loved the game, but I didn't like the training and all the functions and everything that go with it. That was probably the hard part about mine. But that was a thing that go back to match payments, and had a pretty good year in '89, and so they said, we'll give you another year with match payments in 1990.
So you played 1990 on match payments?
Yep.
Wow. So you're a 200-game player, two premierships to your name, and going into a 4th grand final and you're playing on match payments?
Yeah. Well, an easy way, I've told people before that, my first year I played 15 games at $100 a game and got $1,500 for the year. My final year played 15 games and got 15 grand, and so half of that goes to tax and the rest of it went to fines anyhow, so I didn't make money out of footy.
You took 10 or more marks in 18 games. Now, they were big bombs into centre-half forward, weren't they? And contested situations. Well, they were, weren't they?
Generally were, yeah. You get a bit frustrated if it was... I'd let TD do all the running around and do all the chasing and pick up those kicks. I'd wait for the long ball to come in and be fresh, not worn out by it.
How was your stamina, given your Friday night routine?
Well, I would never know any different. I had my big years where I'd done pre-season training and you're feeling fresh and ready to go, but those years I seem to have broken down in the 2nd or 3rd game, and the years that I was probably coming over an injury that I didn't have much pre-season training was my better years. But it got to the point where I'd be telling Sheeds that it's no good training me Monday, Tuesdays and Thursdays, because by the time I get to Saturday I'm naked, I can't move around. And he said, well, if I do that, I'm going to have to drop you to the reserves. And I said, well, OK, I don't mind that, but remember, once I get back to the seniors, I want to be training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So I'd go to the medical room as an excuse. But it was more just that I knew physically myself that I'd be worn out for too much training. And and then I got back in the seniors and he said, I'll see you Monday night. And I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, that's right, all right. But I needed to make him aware of that too.
And you could stand up to him, you could fight your case with him.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of him learning. Well, Sheeds was just a fitness fanatic that he believed the harder you train, the better you'd perform. But I had to make him aware, and I don't think I was the only one who said it, but it was that some bodies aren't built to do all this hard training all the time.
Sheeds says you are understated superstar. No Hollywood about you, but you're a genuine superstar of the Essendon Footy Club. And I think you're in his best ever team too, so that would show what he thought of you.
Look, I got a lot of respect for Sheeds, and I've heard Sheeds talk, and as he said, you need some whackers in the club, and you're not going to win a grand final with a team full of Christians. So he enjoyed the guys, and I think it's the fun and the humour to break up the training and so forth. A lot of guys were humorous in that regard. And I think you need that, because I think it's all too much straight down the line and too honest and, all a bit too serious now. But then again, it's a serious game. It's a business now. Well,
you know firsthand about that, because your boy is he's been in the Essendon Academy and he's at draft age, isn't he?
Yeah. He trained with Essendon last year, and this year he's gone across to Melbourne Casey and he's training with them. But he's had a bad run of injuries. I've had my injuries, but Todd's had 3 broken legs in 4 years, so he hasn't really had a run to prove himself. Last year was his first real opportunity, but he's got a lot of years to pick up.
How difficult is it, the dual role you've got? You're a former Essendon player and a celebrated hero of the footy club, and you're now a young bloke's father who's trying to make his way. Is it emotional for you when you talk to Essendon about where he's headed?
Not really. I've left a lot of it to Todd. I've spoken to other players about father-son situations, and I've got all encouragement for him, but I maybe don't show it. And if he doesn't make league footy, so be life.
Are you slightly frustrated by the Essendon attitude to him?
To a degree. I don't think they probably gave him enough opportunity. Never really spoke to anybody in detail about it, but Todd had indicated to me that they didn't really show much interest, and Melbourne had been out watching him play and showed interest. So I think good luck, and hopefully does all right there. Yeah.
You spend a fair bit of time on the tennis court and the golf course with TD, don't you, Terry Danaher?
Yeah.
You're great mates, you two, aren't you?
It's great to catch up to Terry. I catch up to a lot of guys. I went up to Ronnie Andrews' place the other week, and Glenn Hawker I catch up to. A lot of names without forgetting, Maxie Crow and so forth. But the one I do miss is old Merv Nagel. So, I really do, yeah. Because we were the best mates.
You've changed a bit, haven't you? I mean, you're much more involved now as an ex-player than you probably wanted to be as a player. Is that fair?
I'm probably trying to put a little bit back into the club, whereas, I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, which I didn't really think too much about. But then you look at other players going in and I'm thinking, were they better than me? And then, so I did appreciate
you gonna name it for me?
No.
Let's move to 1989. You're playing in a final against Hawthorn at Waverley. A bloke called Dermot Brereton happens across your path. Huge bump. I mean, it was on the members' wing, wasn't it? Grandstand wing?
Only from what I've seen on telly, because I can't remember it.
So he got you good, as they say, didn't he?
Yeah.
You played on that day, didn't you?
Well, the way it's gone is that I came off and Doc Reed done the tests and said, I think you'll be right to go back on, but I can't remember anything about the game. And
do you remember that you whacked Greg Deere?
No, I just remember realising that I had to go to the tribunal for hitting Deere.
Yeah, and you were found guilty of that charge. And then I think it was almost unprecedented that Essendon appealed on the grounds that you had concussion.
That's right.
And weren't in control of your faculties.
That's right.
Not for the first time in your life either.
No.
And they won that appeal.
Won the appeal, and as we came out of the courts for it, that she'd said, right, well, we can put you in the side now. And I said, Sheeds, no, I'm not still feeling well. I said, I am seriously been concussed, and can we just wait to see how I feel? And I was still struggling by Friday, Saturday, so I said, I don't think it'd be right. And that was then became the final against Geelong. So I stood out of that, hoping that we'd win that, and then would have had another grand final.
That was an enlightened view at the time, because you blokes were so cavalier about concussion, weren't you? Oh, it'll be okay, I'll be okay. A bit of a fog, but I'll be right.
Yeah. Well, I think this one was a lot more serious. But, it's brought up a lot, that whack that Dermot gave you. I said, yeah, well, that was only concussion. I only copped a week where I couldn't play footy. But, I've had broken legs and collarbone and jaw and 4 broken ribs at one time and a collapsed lung and whatever. So Dermot's hit on me was nothing compared to the others.
I say, Sheed said that you didn't understand the meaning of discipline and dedication, but he also added too that you didn't understand what fear was either. You were just totally fearless on the footy field, weren't you?
Well, I suppose that was my nature. Some might say that you're probably stupid for some of the things that I did, but that was probably my desire, just to go and get the ball.
But weren't you? It seemed like you were oblivious about everything around you. It was just see ball and go for ball.
That's probably the way I did it. Yeah.
You're not angry with that, are you?
That's the way the game was played.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a head-high bump, but I only had to be 2 inches further, and I would have copped it on the shoulder probably. That might have been his intention. I might ask him that one day, but I don't think so.
No, I think he carried out what he intended. Yeah. Now, Vander, I'm sure honour boards have got precious little interest to you, but your name's not on the best and fairest board at Bomberland. Did you get close?
Yeah, my first year, I got my first game in round 5 and came runners up in the best and fairest, which I lost to Simon Madden by 1 vote. So
you had a lot of glee in reminding Simon that had you played the full season, it was yours.
Gotcha. Yeah.
He was a star, Simon Madden, wasn't he?
Fantastic.
He's as good as ruckman as I've ever seen, and that includes Nichols and Farmer.
As awkward that he is, he was very mobile, and for his marking and ruck contesting and kicking for goal was fantastic. I put him down as one of the great players I played with.
I want you, this is the difficult one always, I want you to reflect on your career. How does Paul Vander Haar see the Vander Haar career?
Football was part of my life, and I'm glad that I ended up having that opportunity to do it. And in the outcome now, I look back at it and appreciate that I have done it, rather than sitting back and saying I could have. But I'd probably proved a point to myself and to others.
I meant before about the lovable rogue. You are that, and lots of people are very fond of you. And I think we all love the way you played your footy, and probably lament a bit that there's not more of it these days. But it's been a great career, and told to be really proud of it. It's great to catch up, Vander, after chasing you for 4 years.